This week's podcast is sponsored by Marantz, who've been delivering advanced home audio innovations since 1953. Marantz audio products have been designed to reproduce music as it was meant to be heard, because music matters. Find out more about what makes Marantz so special at marantzmoments.com. Hello and welcome to the AVForums podcast for Monday the 25th of November. And joining me in this edition, Steve Withers.
Happiness is your biggest enemy.
Ed Selley.
You English, you're such arseholes.
And Mark Botwright.
Come on.
Welcome back. This is back to the normal podcast. Hopefully you've enjoyed the calibration stuff that we've done over the last few weeks. We'll follow that up in the new year. No doubt there'll be more announcements and so on from CES, which is less than a month away now, or just over a month away. That's scary. Anyway, lots been going on. Steve, where you been?
I've been in Korea. I was in Seoul. I was a guest of Samsung.
All right, good for you. Anything else been going on? Have a bit of kimchi?
In Seoul? Do you know what? I didn't have any kimchi whole trip. It was weird. Last year, because they basically take a bunch of journalists out to look at what they're doing for next year. So unfortunately, I can't talk about that bit, but I can talk about the rest of the trip. Last year, we ate quite a lot of Korean food. We ate in the staff canteen, basically, and this sort of stuff. It was really good. This year, they kept like putting on. We had Korean barbecue, which was nice. But,
love Korean barbecue.
Yeah, we had Korean barbecue, although there wasn't much kimchi knocking around. Well, I didn't see it on my table. And during our lunches, they kept taking us to the VIP dining room, and we had Western food, which is a disappointment because you kind of think, well, while I'm in Korea, I'd rather eat something different. But the food was generally good. The second night we had Chinese, bizarrely, a lot of dim sum, but I love dim sum, so again I was very happy with that. It was a fun trip. Yeah, it was a fun trip, and weather was nice. It was sunny and it was cold.
Just keep rubbing it in. Just keep rubbing it in.
It's just nice to be, it's like really cold, but it was dry and sunny and blue skies, which the kind of winter I really like.
Some of my favourite weather.
Japan's winters are like that. They're really nice. Whereas you come back to England and it's miserable and grey and pouring with rain. Oh god. Yeah. But the trip was good. I enjoyed it, and
I should have been there. Yes.
Unfortunately, you're about to explain why you weren't. What were you doing, Phil?
I spent an absolutely fascinating day at Dolby for the Philips event. Met lots of AVForums members. Thank you very much for all your feedback about the podcast. Everybody that came up and spoke to me about that. It's nice to know that there's at least 5 or 6 people listening to the podcast every week. So yeah, the feedback was welcome. So thanks very much for that. Really, really interesting. Obviously, Philips asked what we wanted to do this year for an event. They wanted to show off their TVs, and they said, "Have you got any ideas?" And the idea that popped straight in my head is that as tech journalists, we get to see behind the scenes. We get to see Grade and Suite, so they go to Skywalker or Technicolor or Dolby or whatever, and we get to see this stuff. The general public don't get to see it, and we're talking in our reviews and in our podcasts about director's intent and how films are graded and all the rest of it. So basically, the idea was invite the AVForums members along and actually show them a professional monitor in a grading suite next to another professional monitor for SDR, and then next to that have an OLED TV and see just how close things are. And I think everybody that turned up were blown away, basically, with the facilities. I mean, Dolby, they were excellent hosts, as were Philips. The Philips TVs were interesting. Danny's demo was interesting. There's a video up on the homepage if you want to see everything that went on. Then go and have a look at the video. But yeah, really, really interesting. And being able to actually sit down and ask some pertinent questions about what's going on in the industry, and how does Dolby Vision actually work, and what are you seeing at home, and all the rest of it. So yeah, it's really interesting. Yeah, I've had a really interesting day. And I ordered Sky TV this week as well.
You're going back?
Said I was never going to go back.
Yeah.
But they have their Black Friday deal on at the minute. So I'm paying BT £59 a month for my internet and landline. For 65 quid, I get the full Sky package with sports, movies, everything, 4K UHD Q box, and my internet, fibre internet, and my landline.
To be honest, that is pretty good, in fairness.
So it was a no-brainer, really, to be honest with you. I had to pay BT to come out with my deal, but even then, I was still saving money. So
is that delivered via? Is there satellite?
Yep, satellite. Yeah. So yeah, it's the new 4K Q box, the new 1 terabit thing, and the full package. I'll never watch the movies and I'll never watch the sports, but the fact that you're getting all that for, less than £6 more.
Sports is every now and again, especially in the grey January, February time. Every now and again, it's quite nice to just watch. For me, usually it's finding a random Premier League game, but I appreciate that different people have different poisons and so on and so forth. It has to be said, Sky's coverage of these things is usually very good, and just having it on in the background if I'm working is always I do miss that. So yeah. It's not necessarily the most compelling argument for paying a fortune for it, but you're not. So, that's good.
Yeah, well, that's it. And so the Black Friday deal, I just thought, yeah, why not? It makes a lot of sense.
And that's locked in for a year, presumably.
18 months.
Oh, that's not bad at all.
It's not bad at all, is it? It's basically 50% off. And the other thing is, I really need it for reviewing TVs because there's lots of compatibility issues that are popping up on the forums. So just having the Q box and being able to test that with the TVs as well, I think that'll be really, really interesting as well. So. Yeah.
Tax deductible then.
Someone's bad to say that.
Yeah, well, absolutely.
Not for me.
No, it isn't for you, is it? No. You don't get to do that.
No. But anyway, it gets installed just before Christmas, and I'm away in Scotland for Christmas, so I'm not going to get to see it. But yeah, cracking deal. So I thought, why not? Right, Mark, what have you been up to?
My shed's been delivered.
Hooray!
Hey.
And the chap putting it down said my base was, and I quote, spot on.
That must. Do you know what? That presumably that just involuntary swell of pride when a man of in that level, a line of professionalism goes, yeah, you've done right. I mean, you're not human if you don't feel a little swell of
I've not had kids, but I imagine this is what it feels like.
No, I agree. I have had kids, and it's still much the same.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And it was not without incident as well, because I'd did I tell you about putting the slabs down incorrectly? I'd cemented in all the way round, and I'd spent best part of a week mixing cement by hand, which is incredibly arduous. And I'd then covered it all up with topsoil, so these things a rhino could have stood on them and they wouldn't have moved. And I put the first row of slab down, and it was fine. Second row, and absolutely perfect. And the third row, on the final one, there was a very ominous thunk as I realised I'm about 3 millimetres out. And I had absolutely no idea what to do. So you hit the can, and then you
tack.
Yeah. But no, I looked up YouTube, and there are lots of I tend to go for the smaller clips because then it makes DIY things seem like they're really easy.
Yeah.
15 minute, 20 minute, no, 3 minutes. This will be a piece of the proverbial. and a bloke telling me how to split paving slabs. It looks really simple. After I'd smashed about the fifth one, I just decided, right, that's it. So I decided to take out all of my concrete and edging by wailing on them with a sledgehammer. And it was, it was not a pretty sight. I don't know what the neighbours thought seeing me. It was like the start of John Wick when he starts smashing in to get his cache of guns.
Or was it like that Simpsons episode with the modern art barbecue?
Yes. And the thing is, the first swing smashes a great chunk off, and it hits me square in the shins as well, which only kind of heightens the annoyance.
Excellent. Have you sorted your skirting board?
No, that's the next job.
Fine. Okay. Sorry, I didn't want. I was hoping that you were just going to, continue to reinforce success. I'm sorry to bring up a sore point, but no, good. Well done.
Excellent. So, Ed, what have you been doing?
I've been hungover. That's been my major activity today. But
well, it is a Sunday.
The far show. Today I've mostly been hungover.
But I've cleaned the house and so on and so forth. I was saying to Phil before we went on, I'll keep speaking. I went to actually have a look at a physical example of the car I've agreed to lease. I thought it might be an idea to work out, so when it turns up on the day, I know how to get in it and how the gearbox works and stuff like that. So that was all good. I've been doing some work for you guys. I have become addicted to a site called Redbubble. You guys used this? It does it started as a T-shirt website.
All right, is it office safe? Is it?
Yes, absolutely. It's like
anything that starts red. I tend
to. That's why I was asking.
I completely agree. But no, I am depraved, Phil, but I'm not quite that bad. So no, it does T-shirts and things like that. But now it's moved over. So if you've got a design, it can be arranged through this site, so it goes on to T-shirts, but then also mugs, throw pillows. I could easily spend £1,000 on tat for the house on this website without breaking sweat. And it's little things like a throw blanket for a king size bed with the Wipeout 2097 logo on it. I mean, I think that's fantastic. It does also say, why, yes, I live alone, very, very alone. But,
so you upload your own images?
No. It's people have done all the thing about the Wipeout stuff is because you remember it was all the art was done by that Design Republic, who essentially, when they folded and split up, they released all of it into the wild. So it's one of those. It's like NASA stuff. There's no copyright on NASA logo and imagery stuff, so you can get all of that. A fun fact: my avatar on AVForums, which has been there for years and years and years, that is a Design Republic logo for the original Wipeout. So yeah, stuff like that I just love. I could spend an absolute fortune on it. And the other thing I've been trying to do is to learn how to reliably make hollandaise. And if you are my bin man who will be collecting my bins tomorrow, I would like to apologise for the state of one of the bin bags. I would say that I'm now at about 45% successful. But that does mean I have blown through a lot of the ingredients to make hollandaise. And I didn't realise, I mean, this is probably a statement that's blindingly obvious, but like when you're poaching an egg, I didn't realise that the age of the egg matters as well.
The fresher the egg, the easier it is to poach it.
No, absolutely.
The chefy way.
But absolutely. But it
basically,
also
fresh eggs are pretty much essential unless you're sticking them into a cake or something.
I completely agree, but it also seems to affect how a hollandaise goes together as well.
Yeah, so, well, because it's, you need that. Yeah, well, I've seen hollandaise being made, and it's a fine art.
It is.
As is making a bechamel sauce, as we discovered in.
Oh God, yeah.
Well, basically, MasterChef. It was almost Ed's boil an egg test. It was basically make a ham and cheese sandwich with croque monsieur, but it's essentially a pan-fried ham and cheese sandwich with a bechamel sauce. And one of the chefs didn't even know what a croque monsieur was. How could you not know? That was funny. I do enjoy.
Yeah. But yeah, that's what I've been up to. So yeah, all good. There's been some, unfortunately, due to Christmas already starting to mess about with review samples. There's been some last-minute substitutions to the things that you're getting in the next touch.
As long as it's still hi-fi.
No, it's still hi-fi. Although, I mean, obviously, I dare say
vaguely related to the.
Oh, if I can start reviewing kitchenware for you guys, I can't tell you how happy I would actually be. But I appreciate that that's possibly a bit niche. Although it's a great untapped resource. I mean, the white goods forum on AVF that ticks over quite nicely.
Well,
so
Ed, if you want to be, putting in washing machines and dryers and cookers, feel free.
Actually, no. I was about to say, I just get in touch with Rich Stevenson, make use of his state of the art facilities for it. So
a lot more space.
But yeah, absolutely. But no, as I say, it's been pleasant enough. So all good. Shall we do some competitions?
Yeah, I was just going to say,
segue.
It'd be nice to hear Mark's voice because we don't hear him that often. So on you go, Mark.
Right. You can win a copy of Annabelle Comes Home on Blu-ray. That one ends 29th of November. We've got copies of two of Criterion's November titles on Blu-ray. That's The Palm Beach Story and Moonrise Kingdom, and that's 3rd of December. Also, 3rd of December, you can win a copy of Werewolf on Blu-ray and a copy of Der Golem on Blu-ray. That's 4th of December. A copy of Clockwise on Blu-ray, 4th of December. We've got a copy of The African Queen on Blu-ray. That's 5th of December. And a copy of Catherine the Great on Blu-ray. That's 10th of December. Loads more competitions open or being added daily. So pop on over to avforums.com/competitions to see even more. As ever, all competitions open to eligible AVForums members resident in the UK.
And good luck with the previous competition winners.
Deep breath. Fleaman 101 won It's a Wonderful Life 4K. Sarah 7 and PJ Foster won Titans Season 1 on DVD. Dank 23 and Emma Fifemar One, DC's Legends of Tomorrow Season 4 DVD. Red Devil 85 won Red Heat 4K and Universal Soldier 4K. Cracking prize.
Yeah.
Mushroom Kid won The Haunting of Hill House Season 1 BD. Golden Phoenix won Scarface on 4K. Eddie Boy won Brightburn on Blu-ray. MK44 won The Fate of Lee Khan on Blu-ray. Leslie 1822004 won I Am Duran PD. Paul 13 won Shadowhunters Season 2 on Blu-ray. Rhino 2K and Risey 1983 won The Flash Season 5 on Blu-ray. Dwery and Comping Kid won Supergirl Season 4 on Blu-ray.
I wonder what their primary interest in forums is.
Sledge won Support the Girls on DVD, and Draped in Darkness won Criterion's October titles on Blu-ray.
Excellent.
Hooray.
Well done to all our winners there. I hope you enjoy your prizes. We'll be back in a sec with hardware. Okay, so moving on to hardware, no reviews this week because we got to do our Editor's Choice Awards. So they were published last week. Hopefully you've been through and had a look. So we'll just have a quick conversation about the winners, the categories, why we picked them, and so on. And this is the best of 2019. For our podcast that goes out in December the 16th, what we're going to do is, because it's the end of a decade, we're going to have our best of the decade. So that's hardware and movies and all that kind of thing. So we're going to do that for our last podcast of the year. But this week we're going to do Editor's Choice. So we started with Home AV, which is Steve's expertise area of the forums. Obviously we all pitch in and do the odd item of Home AV, but Steve seems to do the lion's share, as it were. So we started with cinema packages. So go through those for us, please, Steve.
Yeah, so best home cinema speakers under £1,000. I chose the Monitor Audio monitors, which I'm not totally sold on the orange drivers, but otherwise they do sound fantastic and they are extremely good value. So if you're looking for a relatively inexpensive speaker package, those definitely worth considering.
I'm looking at the image and there's two floor standers in the image.
Yes.
One with 3 drivers and one with 2 drivers. What's there?
That's
which one
presumably the range
review?
photo.
Yeah,
it's a range photo. So they've got the smaller bookshelves, a centre speaker, a sub, and then 2 choices of floor stander.
Right. So which floor stander did you review?
Yeah, the system I had was the sub, the floor stander on the left-hand side of the picture, one with 2 drivers and a tweeter, and then the smaller bookshelf, which has got sort of a tweeter at an angle. So it's in the corner.
Square.
You had those as well,
little
didn't you?
speakers, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I
And
reviewed
then
it
the
last
speaker.
year, so but it's really good, really lovely thing.
Yes.
And
That's
it's
what I
unusual to
actually
see a square box as well. That is unusual.
I would say, I would be the first to say, I don't think they're lookers. I think maybe you were more enamored of them than I was, Ed. But I'm
But
I
I'm
don't
a
think
retro.
I don't think they're lookers, but they're well
so-
made and they're inexpensive and they sound fantastic. So what more could you want?
Yeah, good stuff. So the next category was?
Yeah, £1,000 to £2,000, and I've gone for the Bowers and Wilkins 600 series, which obviously they're entry level under the 700 and 800, but do include many of the features you'll find higher up the range, particularly the continuum weave that's used in the mid-bass drivers. And again, it sounds gorgeous. Nice neutral sound. It's lost some of the what you would probably call the traditional Bowers and Wilkins
Warmth.
colour, mid-range dip, because they don't use Kevlar anymore. But I think they sound fantastic. I think there's more greater neutrality to them. As with all of Bowers' kit, extremely well made, competitively priced considering what you're getting for the money, and they sound fantastic. So yeah, no question, they were my choice in that sort of mid-range between £1,000 and £2,000.
The first proper speakers I went out and purchased were 600 series speakers, a long time ago.
I used to rock a whole set of 600 series until quite recently, actually.
Right.
I had them for over a decade.
Yeah.
Maybe even longer than that.
Good speakers. Good speakers.
Good speakers, and they're great speakers. They've always been good speakers. I think they're even better now, and definitely if you're in that price range, you should be considering those. And then at the high end, so 2,000 and above price range, I chose the Definitive Technologies BP9000 series because I absolutely love these speakers. I think they're attractive. I like the look of them. They're very minimalist, but they've got sort of like these not exactly feet, but a base at the bottom that's kind of a chrome finish, and some chrome edging on the center speaker. As you'd expect from an American manufacturer, they're big and beefy, although not that big. I mean, you could still fit them in even to a. I mean, they're relatively narrow, so they're not as big as you might imagine they would be. But what I liked about them particularly was that they sound great, they're well made, they look attractive, they're surprisingly competitively priced, because I mean this system doesn't cost as much as you might think it does. But what I love is the way that they've really thought through a lot of the details. So for example, they have built-in subs, which means you can very easily create a system with a sub in each corner of the room by just putting 4 floor standers in each corner of the room. They have modules for upward firing drivers if you want an Atmos system that slot in the top, and then there's actually matching binding posts at the bottom for those upward firing drivers. Again, little touches like that really made them, they really thought through everything in these speakers, and I love them. I never had a set of dev techs before, and I thought they were fantastic. So if you're looking for a higher end system, and you want something that's going to, you can fit it into a home cinema without drawing attention to yourself, because I mean they are black and they've basically got black fabric all the way around, but they don't look unattractive. And if you want them to put them on display, you can do that too. They sound great. They've got subs built in, so they've got plenty of bass. And like I said, there's nice little features like slotting in the upward firing modules if you need them. And you can have 2 at the front, 2 at the back. And yeah, I just thought it was a really well put together, well thought out system.
That centre speaker, I don't know if it's an illusion of how you've taken the photograph, but it looks massive.
It's a lot nearer the camera than the rest of them.
Yeah, I was going to say.
They are. Yeah, you're right. It looks huge, but it's not as big as it looks. Just, neither. I mean, if you think about it, those modules on top of the centre speaker, they go on top of the.
Yeah, and they look massive. Yeah.
It's just that's a bit closer to the camera than the rest.
These are big. Those are far away.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, obviously you've touched on the fact that they are, an American company, American speakers, and so on, but they're not too brash. Because my abiding opinion of American speakers is that they do tend to be a bit yeehaw, over the top, brash.
I mean, audio wise or looks?
Audio wise,
no, I didn't think so at all. Actually, I didn't think they're over the top. I mean, obviously, they have a big sound to them. They're designed for big rooms because it's the States where they've got a lot more space. But I just like the fact that for home cinema you want a bit of power, don't you? You want something that's going to deliver the soundtrack, particularly a modern blockbuster with some gusto. And I just thought that they delivered the goods. I mean, I think they're a cracking system for home cinema, which is obviously the priority. I mean, you might have a different opinion if you're thinking about stereo, but definitely for home cinema, these were a really good system.
Good stuff. Right, so let's move on to sub-bass. 3 subwoofer categories this time.
Yes. For under £500, this was a pretty easy choice. The BK Electronics P12 300 SB PR. They need to think about their naming system. They really need to come up with something better than that. P12 300 SB PR. I know that I mean, the name does denote what it does, but it's not very catchy.
Yeah, it should be the BK Electronics Thundercat, or
yeah. Or I like the bass bastard or whatever, Anyway, name aside, I mean these you can get this for 450 quid, and you're getting an absolutely stonking subwoofer, well made, plenty of amplification, 300 watts, 12-inch driver. And it's superb. It performs really, really well. It performs so well that you could put it up against something twice the price and it can still hold its ground. It is amazing what they do. I suppose the direct sales model helps in terms of keeping the price down. But I mean, a lot of guys in the forums will swear by a BK, and I can see why. As far as a budget sub goes, this was a no-brainer, really. 500 quid, £450, and job done. If you need a sub. Even if you've got a reasonably good system, this will do the job. So if you're tight on budget, or we want to get 2 and don't want to spend too much money, then this is the one for you.
I've got a BK Monolith. I've had it for 12 years, about when they first brought the monolith model out, and it still surprises me to this day when I switch it on. I use it sometimes with the TVs in the living room, and it's still amazing what you get quality wise from them. Absolutely brilliant for value for money anyway.
Yeah, definitely. They are the budget subwoofer maker of choice, I think. And if you just look on any of the reviews or any of the threads on the forums, you'll see there's a lot of fans out there for BK. A lot of love.
It's interesting because your next choice looks very, very similar to the BK, and obviously BK used to do a lot of OEM work for your next choice.
It looks very similar. I mean, the styling is different, but yeah, there's a big similarity. This is the 500 to 1,000 price range. So I've chosen. We didn't see a lot of subs in that price range, but the one that impressed me the most in the last year is the REL HT1205, and this is part of the HT stands for home theater. So a bit like the they have actually, to be honest, REL have got some nice new naming. Like one's called the Predator. That sounds more like a subwoofer to me. The Predator sounds great, but the HT's home theater and the 12 is obviously 12-inch driver, and the 05 means it's 500 watts of amplification. So again, the naming convention does denote what it does. But the big thing about this is that they're going for something aimed at the home theater market. So there's none of the high pass filters that you normally get on a REL sub, and instead they're going for something that's a bit more simplistic in terms of connections to the back base. You just plug in your LFE channel and you're away. So it's dead easy to set up. It does look a lot like the BK, as you said, Phil. The styling wise, it's a little bit more, it's a little bit more stylish, I guess. Although I will say that the mirror, the glossy top panel, I don't think it's a good idea in a home cinema because obviously it reflects light off the screen. If I have one on a full-time basis, I would probably put some black velvet over top of that to cover that reflective top. But the styling is attractive, but as attractive as you can make a black cube. And the performance is superb. Again, this is a great performing, relatively. I mean, price-wise, it's not. I mean, it's in the 500 to 1,000 bracket, but it only costs $699. So it's smack in the middle of that price range, really. So again, you're getting a competitively priced, well-performing, and very well made.
Class D. Is it Class D?
Yes, it is Class D. Yes. And then finally, in the £1,000 and over price bracket, I gone for the SVS SB3000. Now, obviously, SVS, everyone knows they make fantastic subs. I am not totally sold on the metal grill. Some people like it. It's a bit Marmite for me. Obviously, it protects the driver from anything pretty much. You can kick it and it'll be all right. But I can't say it's particularly attractive in my opinion. I guess in a dark and home cinema you can't really tell anyway. But as you expect with an SVS sub, it's superb build quality. It's a beautifully made sub, and it sounds absolutely fantastic. I mean, it's priced at £1,275, which it's not cheap, but you're getting a lot of the tech that's been sort of trickled down from the 4000 series above it, and also from the 16 Ultra range before that. So it includes some really handy features, including a control app, which is brilliant because obviously means you can sit at the listening position and control the sub and change things like the level or anything, and you can change everything without having to move from your seat, which is obviously because most people know what it's like trying to lean over the bloody subwoofer and look down and trying to find the controls and fiddle around with them. So that's a nice little feature in and of itself. Yeah, it's got an 800 watts Class D amplifier, but it's got peaks of up to 2,500. Uses a 13-inch high excursion driver. It can deliver some serious bass. And from a relatively small, unlike say the PB4000 I reviewed last year, that was the size of a chest freezer. The moment
that there's a bass port involved on an SVS subwoofer, it gets
double
very
the size,
big very quickly.
Double the size.
This is obviously sealed, hence the SB. This is sealed, but it still delivers a hell of a punch. And you can put a couple of these in your home cinema at the front. I think you'd have an absolutely fantastic set of subs. And as I say, I think although it's not cheap, for £1,275, you are getting an awful lot of subwoofer in there and a lot of technology crammed into it. The other two I've mentioned are very basic in terms of their connections and particularly how you control them. But this one brings some very cool tech. but also brings all the and a surprising amount of control and subtlety for a SVS sub. Although that seems to have been the nature of their subs in the last couple of years. They've got a lot less. In the past, I think they it was more like blunt force drama, but now it's a bit more subtle and nuanced.
Yeah. I had one of the first tube subwoofers that they made. Obviously imported it at that point from the States, and great subwoofer. But like you say, it was too overpowering. And I went back to a Servo 15 because I wanted something a little bit more nuanced. But I've heard the latest ones and they're absolutely brilliant. Really good subwoofers. Yeah. Right, so let's move on to your favourite subject, which is soundbars.
Yeah, well. Right, so under 500 quid. I've gone for the Polk Command Bar. Now, I do appreciate this is not as easy to get at the moment as it was when I reviewed it, and it has changed in price. I think it was initially... when it first launched, they were obviously cheap pricing it very cheap because I think about 200 quid. It's still only 250, so it's not expensive. But in terms of what you get for your £250, I mean, it's absolutely staggering values. 2.1 channel soundbar, so it's a soundbar plus a separate wireless subwoofer. You've got 2 HDMI inputs, an HDMI output. With ARC, you've got Bluetooth and Wi-Fi. You've got built-in Alexa. All that for 250 quid, I think, is a bargain. When you consider a couple of weeks ago, I was talking about Bowers and Wilkins and their soundbar, which is £1,000 and doesn't have an HDMI input. So I think you're getting great value. It sounds really good too. I mean, it's not going to sound as good as something that's going to cost twice as much, but for that price point, I think it's a good sounding soundbar. The fact it has a wireless sub means it delivers some decent bass as well, which is often with a lot of these in this price point, a lot of them don't have don't come with a subwoofer, so you really give up a lot of that low end. But this has got a decent low end because it's got that active wireless sub. It's got a decent set of connections. It's got some nice features. It's got a nice remote control, although I'm not completely sold on the. It's one of those ones where you've got the sort of like the rubber, and you just press the buttons, and they're not raw buttons. They're kind of just rubber blisters. So that's probably its weak point. Steve. But it's 250 quid, so let's not knock it. Yeah, and it's got built-in Alexa, so you can literally control it with your voice. It does everything an Alexa speaker would do. It's an Alexa speaker, basically.
Have you turned your Alexa off? Because I can't hear it shipping in the background.
Yeah, but poor listeners are going to be hearing Alexa.
They've already done something on TV adverts, by the way, because in the lounge, when they have an advert where someone says Alexa, it doesn't activate the Alexa in the lounge. So I think there must be something about the ways. I don't know how they do it, but it's quite clever because it doesn't trigger the device. Presumably it was in the past, and that's why they've done something. But yeah, this is a cracking bit of value. You can't go wrong with this soundbar, assuming of course you can find it. And I will admit that it's not. I don't think Richer Sound sold them anymore, and they were one of the main retailers. But if you can find it, definitely worth considering. In the £500 to £2,000 price range. Again, this was a pretty straightforward decision on my part. Samson HW-Q90R. I think this is a fantastic soundbar, partly because it's the only soundbar you can buy that does Atmos and DTS:X properly. It's got the main unit, the main soundbar at the front, which has got 3 forward firing drivers, 2 side firing drivers, and 2 upward firing drivers. It comes with 2 wireless rear speakers, and they also have upward firing drivers built in, and it's got a wireless sub. So you're getting 7.1.4. There's none of this psychoacoustic cobblers or just having it all at the front of the room where everything means that all the sound is very front heavy. This has got a genuine immersive audio experience. It does it really well. It's got 2 HDMI inputs and 1 HDMI, so could do with a few more HDMI inputs in my opinion. But to be honest, most soundbars unfortunately tend to have limited numbers of inputs. There are a few exceptions, but usually it's 2, maybe 3 if you're lucky. But that one thing aside, it's got it works with SmartThings. It passes HDR10 Plus and Dolby Vision, which a lot don't. It's meant to have an EARC update, although that appears to have been delayed. Apparently, Samsung is saying they'll do it by the end of this year. So, I mean, if that's important to you, don't necessarily buy it based upon what Samsung say, because they may not do it. But they said they're going to be adding it. But otherwise, it's lovely. It's well made, solid. It's quite big, so you really want to be using it with a larger screen size. But then again, with a big sound system like this, you'd want to use it with a bigger TV if you could, or even with a projector. But it sounds great, and it's a really good performer. And as I say, it actually delivers immersive audio in a proper, genuine fashion. which no other soundbar does. So for that price range, and it's also had a price drop since I reviewed it, so you can get it for about 1,250 quid now. Well, I think it was 1,500 originally, and you probably get it for less than that, in a couple of weeks. So that's definitely my choice as far as that sort of mid-range goes, mid to high end. And then for over £2,000, there aren't a lot of, as far as over 2,000 quid soundbars go. I think there was only one option anyway, because that is a lot of money for a soundbar. But it was a pretty easy choice again. The Sennheiser Ambio soundbar. I mean, it doesn't have a separate subwoofer. You can buy one. You of course just plug one in, and unlike the Samsung, it doesn't have any wireless rear speakers and upward firing driver, so you're not getting the full 7.1.4 experience or 5.1.4. But I've got to say that it is huge, absolutely enormous. Bear that in mind too. But because it's so big, it's got some really seriously good drivers built into it, and it does sound superb. And the Ambio immersion experience is very good, considering it's all coming from one point at the front of the room. And even though it doesn't have a separate subwoofer, it does go really low, and the direct bass was impressive from a single unit like this. Partly, I think, because it is actually so big. So it's expensive and it's big, but it does sound fantastic. It does have plenty of HDMI inputs. It does have EARC. It passes HDR10 Plus and Dolby Vision. It does Atmos and DTS:X. So it is a cracking soundbar. But let's not kid ourselves. It's expensive at £2,200.
The thing that pops out to me, Steve, with that product, and it's something that I'm wondering why other manufacturers haven't jumped at it yet, is the calibration mic and the room EQ stuff.
So Sonos, they use the mic in your mobile to help with the room setup. Bose include a microphone that you wear on your head, which actually looks silly. You look silly, but makes perfect sense. Put the mic where your head is, because that's where you want the sounds to be measured from. So actually, it's quite a clever idea. So that they do versions of it which are good. Canton, I'm just doing a view at the moment of a Canton soundbar, and again, they actually have test tones and levels you can adjust. So again, that's good. This one though is great because this is like a really effective automated room EQ system, and it genuinely works. So yeah, unfortunately, I mean, one of my big complaints about, say, the Samsung soundbar is, given it, it's delivering all this stuff, but actually in terms of setting it up, it's very basic. And it would be nice if there was a proper, EQ. You can set levels, but you have to have a test tone disc to do it on the Samsung. So it's not as user friendly and as easy to set up, and to get the best out of it, you need to have things that don't come with the soundbar. Whereas with the Sennheiser, everything's in there. It's all into the app, built into the app. So it is a really effective setup system, and it does work.
Good stuff. So let's move on to AVRs.
AVRs. So you can do it because you did the 3600.
Right. So I reviewed the X3600. Absolutely stonking value for the money versus sound quality and performance. Basically, what Denon have done is they've taken the architecture from the X4500. And ported that over to the X3600. They've upped the power transformer inside. They've also added the aluminium heatsink from the 4500 as well. 11.2 channels of processing, 9 channels of amplification. So that's 2 channels up on the 3500. So they've added 2 extra channels. You've also got Dolby Atmos, DTS:X. There's also the Atmos height virtualization. So if you don't have ceiling speakers, it uses DSP to add the effects up above your head, which actually works quite well. Not the same as having speakers on the ceiling, but it gives you that effect, and it's really quite interesting. There's EARC, you've got Multi-EQ XT32 with the subwoofer calibration as well. I've got to say, Multi-EQ XT32, what a difference compared to older Odyssey systems.
Yeah, it's a lot better.
Far better than it used to be. And as long as you follow the instructions, you place the mic where it shows you on the screen, and you make sure you use the cardboard tripod or a proper tripod, and place the microphone at ear level. If you do it right, the results are really, really good, especially the bass, which was always a weak point. I think that
and you can also go in and you can adjust the crossover for each speaker individually. So just find out where your speaker where it basically goes down to, and then set the crossover a little bit above that, and you can fine tune it and get a really good performance actually.
Yeah, and if you spend, I think it's £20, you can have the app on your phone, and you've got even more manual control over the system. So that's great. It's got HEOS obviously on board there. You can use Alexa, Siri, Google Assistant. I mean, anything, AirPlay 2 as well on there. So, I mean, anything you can think of, this thing's got it. But the thing that blew me away was the sound quality. I'm using the X8500 in my system, reference system at the minute, which is a stonking amplifier. We've got huge power, as you would expect from their flagship model. But I've got to say, the X3600, it was driving the same 4-ohm MK speakers, and up to about minus 9 dB below reference. Not an issue, and that's plenty loud enough to watch a film, to be honest. The only thing lacking is probably a little bit of headroom. I'd like a bit more headroom, but you've got 11.2 pre-outs. So, you could buy this amplifier now, and then if, over time as you build your system, you add more ceiling speakers, or you just want to add more amplification in, you can do that. You can go and buy a decent quality 7-channel amp and add that in and use the processing, because the processing is superb. The thing that really stood out for me with the new processing and the new tuning with this AVR was the effects placement. Now you might think, well, the effects placement should be where it is if it's working properly. Yeah, that's the case, but it was just crystal clear. It was really noticeable in terms of it. It wasn't taking you out of the experience, but it was just really quick at what it was doing in terms of effects placement, if something was moving across the screen or whatever. Whereas with other AVRs, that sometimes gets buried within the mix, whereas this was a lot more clear that way, which really stood out for me. So yeah, astonishingly good performer for the price tag, and it's £999, so it was just under £1,000 for that one.
Yeah, and if you want to spend a bit more, or you want more channels, amplification, then the Denon AVC X6500H, which sits just below the 8500 that you just mentioned, Phil. You can currently get it for 1,600 quid, roughly, around about there. And it's got all the benefit, all the things you've just mentioned for the 3500, but also 2 more channels of amplification. So 11 channels. You can run a full 5.1.4 system. And it includes not only Atmos and DTS:X, but also Auro 3D. And it's got IMAX enhanced as well, although I don't think that's really caught on. But if you want it, you've got it. Plus, it's got things like the HEOS system. It's got EARC. It's got everything. It's a fantastic amplifier. If you're if you don't have enough to go for the 8500, or you don't necessarily don't need 13 channels, this has got 11 channels. Right out of the box, you've got your full setup, and it sounds fantastic. It's got plenty of power, and you could drive a decent sized system with this without any problems whatsoever. And as I said, it's absolutely feature packed. Really, really intuitive menu system as well. What I love about Denon is they've really thought everything through, from the remote control, which has also got a backlight now, which is good, to the menu system, to the setup, to the Odyssey. Everything about it just all works. I mean, you've got one at the moment, Phil. I had one for years, and they're rock solid. You never get any problems with them. There's no bugs in the software and like that. They just do what they're supposed to set out to do, and they do it well. And they're competitively priced, and they look nice, and they're really well made too.
And to wrap up, Home AV is probably the best Blu-ray player I've owned ever. It's just a solid performer, and that's Panasonic's 820, Steve.
Yeah, so basically, absolute no-brainer this year in terms of the choice. It was really obvious it was going to be the UB820 last year, the UB9001. This one does basically exactly the same, apart from not having any balanced XLR outputs and not having a snazzy metal chassis. But performance-wise, there's virtually no difference. The only thing I can think of as different is that there's one more option in terms of the HDMI optimizer, where you can select bright or standard projector modes, but otherwise it's identical, and it's absolutely brilliant performer. Does everything you'd want it to do. It's got all the nice little features like the playback info, that kind of thing. Remote control isn't as snazzy as the one on the 9000, but it gets the job done. It's quiet in operation. It's nice, and it looks nice, and it's not like a really cheap version, and you can get it for is it $250 these days? It's really cheap, and it performs brilliantly. and it does everything, HDR10 Plus, Dolby Vision, the lot, and it's an absolutely cracking player. And if you're buying a 4K disc player, get this one. Simple as that.
Absolutely. And the UB450 is just a smaller version of this with no front display.
Although I quite like the fact that this one at least looks like it's a decent looking. It doesn't look, even though it isn't very expensive, it doesn't look cheap. It does look like a nice play.
So if you can't stretch to just over 200 quid, the 450, which I've got both of these, I've got an 820 and a 450. The 450 I think you can get for about 170 quid, which is an absolute bargain as well. But yeah, the 820, what a machine! I absolutely love it. And at the price as well, when you consider that stepping up to the 9,000 is a considerable leap in price.
Oh, big difference, yeah.
Yeah. Right, so that's home AV done. Right, so let's move on to hi-fi. And Ed's choices for his picks for the awards this year. So Ed, first category was speakers under £1,000.
Yeah, and Polk S15E, not a pretty speaker. I think it's actually a bit of a minger. And it doesn't do as many things as the Commander Bar does. But in terms of the ability to just deal with a huge variety of different music and work just as effectively with affordable sources and amplification as decent ones, it did absolutely everything right. And what you were saying about American speakers earlier, not a trace of that with these. They are, I mean, admittedly, it helps that a German has voiced them, but nevertheless, I expected very little when they turned up. They just delivered in spades. Lovely product, and I believe it just meshing all this together. There are some the multi-channel options available are not to be sniffed at either. But yeah, 250 quid, absolute bargain.
And then moving up 1,000 to 2,000.
Yeah, this was a bit of a surprise because it's the Monitor Audio Gold 100, and I thought it was going to be good because Monitor Audio aren't, generally speaking, they don't deliver speakers that are anything other than very competent. But this is more than competent. It was genuinely fun to listen to. They really have got the handle on some of the technology that they've been introducing over the last couple of years. And it's beautifully fit. I mean, Monitor Audio don't make badly assembled products, but even so, there's nothing that gets close at the money to how well this thing is bolted together. As I said at the end in the conclusion on that, that's about 85% of the performance of the Platinum stand mount for slightly over 50% of the price. It's an absolute bargain.
Okay, and then we have best hi-fi speaker over £2,000.
Yeah, it's the Focal Cantor. It, as people pointed out in the comments, the looks are very much a matter of taste, but I cannot in any way, shape or form fault how they perform. They are absolutely magnificent loudspeakers, to the extent where they're still here at the moment, if I'm honest, because I'm working out long and increasingly appalling excuses as to why they can't go back just yet. No, they are utterly fabulous. They do everything that Focals are supposed to do, but then they do it with an extra helping of joy and fun. And nothing I've connected them to yet hasn't seen them just fly. Absolutely fabulous product.
I'm a bit like that with this latest JVC projector. I've been hanging on to it for as long as I can. Right, so moving on, turntable time. Under £1,000.
Technics. The
Easy.
SL1500C. If you are keen on vinyl, but you're not a fanaticist and you're not interested in, I'm going to use it, pissing about with working out what the resonance of the cartridge compared to the arm and all the rest of it, just buy one of these. It'll last probably forever. It's got a huge amount of upgrade stretch, so you can buy it under £1,000, but it easily has the ability to work with you if you decide to start upgrading further. It's beautifully made. It does all of the things that we expect a direct drive Technics to do, and if you find it a bit heavy on its feet out of the box, it really doesn't cost very much money to make it sound altogether a bit more deft and delicate. It's really, really lovely. I'll be honest, I in some regards prefer it to the 1200s because it's not a button fest. It's just got the control, the start stop controls. I don't need pitch control, things like that for the music I listen to. I thought it was absolutely brilliant. Yeah,
good stuff. And like you say, build quality and long life and all the rest of it. It's why they stopped making them because the 1200s went on forever. They were that good a product. Right, over £1,000 for a turntable, Ed.
Rager Planer 8. We've talked about this with lots of different products over the years. By the time you're spending this much money, it's as much about how something makes you feel. I mean, obviously, this is me as much as anything admitting that I if something is really curious in terms of how it performs, I will generally try and get to the bottom of that, either by doing some crude measurements here or by seeking out measurement information online. But nevertheless, if you're spending over £2,000 on a turntable, which is how much the Rager costs once you start specifying cartridges with it, you have to look at it and go and just feel the satisfaction of it just being there as an object. And the looks are something, it's like many of the products, it's hard to photo, but in the flesh, it just feels spectacular. It feels modern and clever, and also, in a different way to the Technics, it also feels incredibly solid, which is no mean feat because it weighs bugger all. And it sounds absolutely outstanding. If you are able to lavish this much money on a turntable, it really does start to give you the benefit of just what the format is capable of. So it's brilliant. One of the reviews coming up is its big brother, the Planer 10. But this is a mild spoiler. Don't get me wrong. The Planer 10 is better than the Planer 8, quite a lot better. But even if it had... No, of course not. Not least because of the law of diminishing returns. Honestly, in terms of how the people I interact with in terms of the AVForums reviews and stuff, even if it had made the cutoff for the awards, it probably would have still gone to the Planer 8, because the Planer 8 is, for the money it costs, it just does extraordinary things, and it's beautiful, and it makes me happy just looking at the damn thing. So that can't say fairer than that, really, can you?
No, good stuff. Right, so moving on, all-in-one hi-fi, which is now becoming quite a big item in the world of hi-fi. So under £1,000, what do you recommend? Right,
well, after the conversation we had about Formation products some weeks ago, the Formation Wedge by Bowers and Wilkins gets this, and I ummed and ahed about this because it's unquestionably, to make all of the bells and whistles work, it is expensive. But stripping that back, if you just want the best sounding device to AirPlay to, and a lot of people do, let's be clear about this, they don't need to disappear down the Roon rabbit hole, it sounds fabulous. It sounds as good as the product which has won the over £1,000 award, which we'll come to in a moment. It looks much better in the flesh than it ever does in any of the photos, especially my ham-handed efforts. It's a genuinely clever and lovely thing, and it's, as we discussed, the stereo Formation products don't have some of the more, some of the issues that we were talking about with the multi-channel ones. So I think it's an excellent product. It's a worthy award winner.
And over £1,000?
Name Muso Generation 2. Now, to be clear, as I said, it doesn't sound significantly better than the Wedge does. Let's be clear about this. But whereas the Wedge becomes like ordering a BMW in the 90s, where the option boxes get the price up quite quickly, the Name does absolutely anything you could want an all-in-one to do out of the box, and it does it brilliantly. The highest accolade I can pay this product is that my father has bought a Muso 2nd Gen, and it has been in constant action, working via HDMI ARC and as a network streamer, and my mother listening to the radio and things like that. And it's been running every day with two people who are not network-minded individuals. I mean, they're not Luddites by any stretch of the imagination, and it hasn't missed a beat. And my dad just adores it, absolutely adores it. And I completely agree with him. I think it is a truly magnificent product. It's interesting, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, I take, some of the things that Steve talks about with soundbars. Honestly, if you are shopping for a soundbar and you're looking at a premium option, weigh up what your balance of what you're going to be doing with it, because the Name is competitive in terms of how it performs. If you can do without the faux surround, and that's your decision that you're going to have to make, I just think it's a magnificent product. It's really, really good.
Okay, good stuff. So let's move on to hi-fi amplifiers under 1,000.
Yeah, Tangent Ampster BT2. It's not pretty. It's not terribly radical. It doesn't have a huge amount of power. But what it does is generate a tangibly hi-fi experience for bugger all money. If you combine the Tangent with the Polk, which I did during the review process, you can listen to it, and you don't. I had at the time, even though I was still in the shed, I had much more expensive equipment to one side, which I could easily have substituted in, and I didn't feel compelled to at any stage. It's an absolutely brilliant way of starting to build your own hi-fi system. It's got some stretch in it. It's got some useful, combination of analog and digital inputs. And it's got enough power to get the job done with most comparatively priced loudspeakers. As I say, it's not a thing of beauty, but it's a properly clever piece of affordable hi-fi.
Okay, best amplifier a grand and over.
Musical Fidelity M6 500i. It's interesting you're talking about products of the decade. For me, this is one of them, because this is the most Route 1 product I've tested in God knows how long. It's literally the bare minimum of stuff required to contain 500 watts of balls out fury, and it's absolutely magnificent to live with. It's the complete elimination of the concept of headroom. And yes, you can buy integrated amplifiers for the same money that have got digital inputs. They've got networking. We looked at some incredibly clever amplifiers over the course of this year. This one is not in any way clever at all, and it is about as environmentally friendly as an oil slick. But nevertheless, if you simply want to listen to music, as going back to the whole accuracy thing, I've seen the measurements this amplifier puts in, and they are outstanding. If you genuinely want an uncompressed version of what's on the recording, there isn't much that can get close to this. I say isn't much because at a recent hi-fi show, it would appear that Musical Fidelity was worried that this wasn't powerful enough, so they built a bigger one, which we will be having a look at next year. It's fabulous. It is a genuine pleasure to live with, even though the price has gone up a little bit. Fabulous amplifier.
Okay, and moving on swiftly, best headphone under 500 quid.
The Audio-Technica M50X BT, by the distance of the Earth to the Sun. It's unbelievably good. And I can't understand how they've done it as well as they have, because as I say in the original review, it's a conversion of an existing wired design, which they've somehow, without changing any of the external dimensions, turned into one of the most beautifully sorted Bluetooth headphones I've tested in years. It's if you don't need noise cancelling, and it must be said, you ought to have a listen to them and see what level of noise isolation they provide without active noise cancelling. They're just sensational value for money, and the battery life is unreal. I mean, there's a pair still here. You can use them. You could, as I said, you can use them for an entire week of long commuting to and from your work, and you wouldn't need to charge them until Friday evening. They are absolutely spellbinding bits of kit, and they are built like a tank. Absolutely fantastic piece of value work.
500 and over.
That's an earphone. It's the AKG N5005. Now, this product is it's probably the best all-round earphone on the planet, because you can connect it to a wired DAC and so on and so forth, and it generates an absolutely amazing performance. You can then leave that cable on the table. That's not supposed to be alliterative, but it is. Attach a Bluetooth yoke and go out to work with them on your smartphone. They're just, as an all-rounder, they are utterly magnificent. And the tragic thing is that they're possibly not, they're not going they aren't going anywhere. I checked this, which is why they have the award. But equally, they are unlikely to be replaced, because with AKG now more firmly aligned with Samsung, a £900 earphone doesn't really fit with what they're intending to do. This is everything that AKG knows about earphones, and it's possibly the last time that a product of this nature is going to be built by them. And they're just magnificent products. Just a wonderful thing.
Best digital hi-fi product under £1,000.
Right, well, this is contentious because obviously since we are doing this, things have changed a bit. But I stand by it. The best digital product under £1,000 is Rune, the software. But it's since this award has been published, it's got a bit closer to £1,000 than it had done when we tested it. Rune has put the price up for lifetime ownership because they want more annual subscriptions. And in terms of a viable business model, I fully understand that it rankles a bit and so on and so forth. I think that it's not quite the knockout at what will probably be in the region of 650 quid that it was at 400 odd quid. But nevertheless, if you are if you're serious about digital music, it is by the distance, just by an enormous distance, the single finest piece of control software going. I mean, I know that Steve has now been utterly poisoned by it because it turned up with the Formation products, and I don't think he wants to stop using it either. It just makes everything else look like a toy, and it's so good and so clever. And they've started announcing, in fairness to them, some of the reasons why the price has gone up. There's new algorithms to study your listening habits. I know that there's more stuff in the tank. They've got more things to do. It just makes listening to large libraries of music better than anything else.
And over £1,000 for digital hi-fi?
Biggest name all-in-one system, the Unity Nova. The reason for this is that it is an all-in-one system which is utterly competitive with separate components, where the separate components don't cost significantly less than it does as a whole thing. It's got a great interface. It can use Rune if you want it to. It can take an HDMI signal from your telly. It does everything you could realistically want a product to do, and it does it splendidly well. And you can use it with you can use it with speakers well approaching the £10,000 point, and it won't have any difficulty with it. It's a serious piece of hi-fi that just happens to come in a single box.
Best newcomer in digital music.
Well, yes, this is a bit of a wildcard entry. Amazon Music is not the best streaming service out there. Qobuz is currently the best streaming service out there. The reason why this is so important is because this is a mainstream company offering lossless and high-res audio. They're not reliant on stockholder, people pumping money in the vain hope of getting money back. Amazon isn't going anywhere. They've obviously felt, and they're not a particularly radical company when it comes to their digital offerings, they clearly feel that there's worth in doing this for very little more than the price of Spotify. If you want it, you can now get lossless and high-res audio. It's hugely important to our industry, so that's why.
And finally, the hi-fi product of the year
is the NAD M10. By the only product that got within farting distance of this, it was the Bowers and Wilkins Formation Duo, which didn't really fit happily in any other category. But the NAD M10, it's the first of the all-in-ones designed since Name dropped the Unity systems on us. And clearly, it's abundantly clear that NAD probably took a couple of them to pieces and had a look at what made them tick. What they've built is the perfect stereo product for the sort of person who visits AVForums, because it does all of the classic stereo things, but it's got Dirac, it's got proper bass management for 2.1 systems, it's got HDMI to take a signal from a television. It's a fantastic piece of industrial design, which is something I never thought I'd say about an NAD product. It just arrived and delighted me from the moment it came out of the box. Everything about it is superbly clever, and of course it's Rune compatible as well. So if you want to go all in, you can do. If you don't, Blue OS is one of the very few operating systems which gets within a country mile of it. This is an absolutely magnificent product. It's everything that hi-fi should be in 2019.
Excellent. Right, we're going to be quick with the TVs, because if there's one thing that we've been talking about lots on the podcast, it's TVs. So if you're a regular listener, you'll be up to speed. If not, the article is on the homepage for you to go through and spend a little bit more time going through it. So I'm going to rush through this, but I'm going to give you some of the reasons as to why the items have been given the awards. So the best TVs of the year: best home cinema TV, Panasonic GZ2000. Reason for that is the custom panel. They have upped the peak brightness. They have excellent tone mapping on there. They're being able to dissipate the heat, which fights and combats retention, stops that from happening. But overall, the superb colour accuracy and the stunning dynamic range of this TV. I mean, it is absolutely sublime with SDR, and HDR is exceptionally good. So yeah, for home cinema use in a dark room, it is the GZ2000 best budget gaming TV. I just want to make clear that it's not just gaming, although this is what the category is. The reason why I picked the Samsung Q70R is that it is a fantastic gaming TV. It has most of the features that you would get with HDMI 2.1, even though it's not an HDMI 2.1 TV. So VRR, ALM, auto game switching, all that kind of thing. It has fantastic 13.7 milliseconds of lag. Also, it's being Samsung TV, it has the game enhancer, it has the dynamic black equalizer, which changes the gamma, so you can see enemies that are hiding in the shadows and stuff. It also has Game Motion Plus, which is the frame interpolation system. That does add more onto your lag. It's about 10 milliseconds more, so it'd take it up to about 23 milliseconds. But even at 23 milliseconds, it's still pretty impressive when it comes to lag. But also, the reason I picked it, it's under £1,000. It also has 700 nits of peak brightness. It's a FALD, full array local dimming backlight with 50 dimming zones. So as a TV, not just a gaming TV, but as a TV, it's also really a nice performer. It's not edge lit, so you can watch movies on it and the black bars don't suddenly turn a light grey or whatever. They remain deep black. And it has a nice matte finish to the screen as well. So as a living room TV, not just a gaming TV, that's the reason for going with the Q70. I could have gone with a cheaper TV, but in terms of performance with gaming, but also all-round TV, that was the choice there. Best advanced gaming TV. Some people will say, why are you choosing an OLED? Well, the C9, for me, it's full HDMI 2.1, so everything that comes with that. So for future consoles and so on, it's 120Hz panel, does EARC, dynamic metadata for HDR. It's got amazing input lag of 12.8 milliseconds. And it has all the technology on board, plus it's OLED. And the really impressive thing is HDR gaming on it. It is superb. And if you're a PC gamer, it also does NVIDIA G-Sync on there as well, so it will work with some of the gaming cards out there. So in terms of advanced gaming TV, it was the C9 OLED. Best TV under £1,500 has to be the Panasonic GZ950. It's 700 nits instead of the GZ2000, which was closer to 900 nits. You're not going to really notice 200 nits in normal use. Fantastic, superb accuracy. I mean, all the Panasonics measure very, very close to each other. The other thing is uniformity. Black level uniformity is stunning on the Panasonics. The engineers, they realised the black flashing was happening a couple of years ago. Other manufacturers missed it, they didn't. So they already were ahead of the pack when it came to that. So in terms of cinematic images, the GZ950 at current pricing as well, coming up to Black Friday, it's an absolute stonking bargain of a TV. Best premium OLED TV. Some might be surprised that I didn't go with the GZ2000 here, but I think, Steve, you reviewed this one, the OLED 984. It is a premium TV. It has a premium sound system. They have spent a lot of time and effort with the design. I mean, the stand that holds the thing together is a work of art. The soundbar is a work of art. The tweeter above, and then the panel. Now, picture quality is the same down the range, so you're not getting a huge difference in picture quality to the other Philips TVs this year, but it is just a premium TV.
Absolutely. Yeah, it is a premium TV with premium performance, premium build quality, premium sound, plus all those little extra features that you get from a Philips TV, like things like Ambilight, which is actually really useful. Yeah, it's an absolutely cracking television, and it is by far and away the best sounding TV I've ever heard. And
a lot of AVForums members got to hear that this past week at Dolby as well, and I think they were impressed with it as well. I mean, it is a really stonking sound that comes from that TV. Moving on, premium LED LCD TV and also best LCD TV for HDR goes to the Samsung Q90R. Samsung really have knocked it out of the park. In terms of an LCD TV, the Q9FN last year was really impressive. The Q90R even more so when it comes to viewing angles, when it comes to advances with the algorithm for the local dimming system. It has a black hole for a screen. The way that the anti-reflective screen works is amazing. So it's a TV for putting in a bright room, although you can watch it with the lights dimmed as well. It's very, very good for movies. The only issues I have with it are that the local dimming can be a little bit aggressive at times, and it's not quite got the contrast that the Q9FN had, but the Q9FN was a lot more aggressive when it came to its local dimming. So I think on balance, the Q90 is absolutely brilliant. But then when it comes to HDR, I mean, you're talking 1500 nits measured peak brightness. Add to that the the dynamic tone mapping for 4000 nit material. With 1000 nit material, you're not really needing tone mapping. The TV's capable of doing it. The only issue there is that it doesn't quite track ST2084 to the standard out of the box in movie mode. If you take 4 clicks of the contrast down, it then maps it perfectly well, so it's not an issue. Some reviewers are making out that it's a big issue. It's not an issue at all. 4 clicks of the contrast will sort that out. And like I say, I mean, with 4000 nit material, it's got a really nice roll off as well, so it's retaining specular highlight detail in there as well. In terms of an HDR TV, it is absolutely stonking. It's just it's hard to explain. You have to see it doing HDR to appreciate just how good it is. So yeah, it wins 2 awards there. Moving on, the GZ2000 picks up best HDR TV for OLED. Don't have to explain that one. Best smart TV system, Samsung Tizen. Now, some people might be surprised we didn't give it to WebOS. WebOS has won it in the past, LG system. The thing is, I think LG haven't really updated WebOS, whereas Samsung have had a good look.
Essentially the same.
Yeah, so they've had a good look at Tizen. They have added more things in there, as well as the Apple TV app, which is an exclusive there at the minute. So you can watch Apple TV Plus straight through the app there. And it's a nice system. It's nice and stable. It's fast. They've got the new content discovery stuff on there as well. Voice control. Everything you need, basically, for a smart TV system is in there. We've already covered the OLED 984 in terms of best TV sound. It won that award, as well as premium TV. TV picture processing was Philips again with the 3rd generation P5. Now, I'm not a fan of over-the-top image processing, adding sharpening and noise reduction and all that kind of thing. But the P5, there's no doubt the P5 is a powerful processor. It is able to do some absolutely stonking things. And even though I'm not a fan of adding all that in, I'm more, I like my stuff, being a purist, I like stuff switched off. Even still, the processing in the background, just for doing things like 5.5 pull down on the 120Hz panel with 24 frames material, it does it extremely well. In fact, I would say it's level with what Sony do with their processing in terms of that. So, it got that. It does lots of things with Dolby Vision as well, the Dolby Vision Bright Mode. Again, if you're a purist, it's maybe not what you want, but a lot of people out there will like the motion processing and the upscaling performance and that kind of thing from this processor, and it is the best on the market. Best TV technology, not technically an item we've reviewed, so we do use this in every review that we do in terms of TVs, and that's Calman software, but specifically the new AutoCal for home. So as an enthusiast, and the reason I gave it this award is that I thought back to when I started out, and Steve mentioned it in the podcast last week as well, the calibration podcast. We back in the day when AVForums first came around, 2000, 2001, we were going out and we were buying spider meters and using free software and basically trying to work out how do we calibrate our TVs and how does this work and all the rest of it. And we're at a point now where you can actually go out and buy the software, the AutoCal software, buy a meter. The Panasonic TVs and the LG TVs have the pattern generators built in for SDR calibration. So really, if you are somebody who likes to tinker, wants to learn how to calibrate and so on, and you've got a TV that's compatible, the Calman software, the AutoCal software, in those terms is great, and that's why I gave it the award. But also as a professional using this software nearly every day, it's never let me down, ever. And if I make recommendations or I say to the guys, look, this would really help me with my workflow, if they think it's worthwhile, they will add it to the software. And it's really, really flexible. And it makes the job so much easier. I don't do professional calibrations in terms of going out to clients' homes and so on, but I do get paid for reviews. So technically, I'm a professional calibrator, Steve, am I?
I guess so, yeah.
But in terms of just speed, if you're reviewing TVs and so on, the last thing you want to be doing is going in and out, in and out, and in and out of menus and all the rest of it. It speeds it up. When you're doing a 20 point grayscale, it's just so much easier having the AutoCal do it for you and then going in and double checking it. So mainly for the enthusiast side, but also the professional side, Calman win that for their software. That's portrait displays. Best TV innovation is the custom OLED panel. Already discussed that, the GZ2000. Excellent work that the engineers have done there. I really hope they are going to continue their work, push the technology on a bit and see what they come up with in the next year with that. It'll be interesting to see if they do any further R&D with it and try and push that on. And now we come to the one which I wasn't expecting it to be as controversial as it is, but TV of the Year or Best Overall TV, I gave that to the LG C9. I think people were surprised because the GZ2000 won quite a few awards, why that wasn't given the overall. Well, in terms of an overall TV, I think the LG gets it because it offers more than the Panasonic. The picture quality is incredibly close. I mean, if you were to see these TVs side by side, you might be able to pick out the Panasonic in terms of its colour performance, but that's only really the advantage it has in terms of its accuracy and so on. It is a little bit more accurate. The LG is not a slouch, and Steve will back me up on this one. Picture quality wise, it can get very, very close to the GZ2000.
And you can do things in terms of the cam and AutoCal.
Yeah, the tone mapping,
the TV, tone mapping in particular.
Yeah.
The only thing, I mean, obviously, you also has got things like HDMI 2.1, but the only thing it doesn't have that would make it a perfect TV is HDR10 Plus.
HDR10 Plus, but it's never going to happen. It's LG. They are not going to put Samsung-based technology on their TVs, and Samsung's not going to put Dolby Vision on their TVs. So that's just the way it is. But in terms of everything else, like you say, Steve, it's got HDMI 2.1 on all 4 of the ports, 12.8 milliseconds for input lag. WebOS, we mentioned it, is still a superb system in terms of smart TV. It's a good sounding TV, and I know a lot of people are surprised by that, but I actually think the C9 is a very, very good sounding TV. We've been using the speakers and the stand and so on. Yes, there are better TVs out there, but as an all-rounder, and like you say, it's got the new dynamic tone mapping feature in with Calman, but it's also they've played around with the dynamic tone mapping within the menu system, and it's now called Dynamic Tone Mapping Pro. And again, excellent, really, really good system. Takes advantage of HDR10 static metadata playback. It does Dolby Vision. Trying to think what else I've maybe missed there. I think we've covered everything. And that's why it gets overall TV, because overall it has almost everything on it apart from HDR10 Plus. And the picture quality is very, very close to the Panasonic as well. So that's why the LG won that one. So that's it. Editor's Choice Awards. Projectors to come this week while you listen to the podcast. So keep an eye on the homepage. If you want any more details on the stuff that we've discussed, like I say, the articles are on the homepage. Go and read those. And to finish off this section, we've got a little bit of gaming. So we're going to hear from Mark again. So Mark, you've been playing games, unsurprisingly, but you're playing Jedi Fallen Order. What do you think?
I really, really like it. It's not exactly what I think I expected. It's far more based on kind of level traversal rather than just straightforward combat. But it's one of those games where you can obviously see that there's the potential for an ongoing franchise, and for a single player Star Wars game, that's kind of big news. It looks very good. Some of the graphics are a bit of a mixed bag. There are a few kind of textures in there and faces that are a bit off, but with regards HDR, I think one of the great things is moments like when you use a lightsaber and it kind of scores a surface and it leaves that scorch mark there. And, in a darkened environment, that does it. It never really gets old. And there are particular places where you have to go through, cave systems and the like, and you hold up your lightsaber to light the way. It just casts a nice neon glow. And they've got, I think, just the right balance of those kind of, gorgeous skyboxes and the kind of big kind of awe-inspiring moments. But it's far more about kind of exploration and closer to a kind of Tomb Raider or Uncharted type of game rather than something straightforward aiming for combat. It's it's been likened to a Souls-like in the sense that it uses a block/parry system, and you've got a kind of stamina bar associated with that. And when you get to certain save points, then all of the enemies respawn. But I don't think you have to look too deeply into whether it makes any sense that happens. You know, they've set up just the right amount of nice little set pieces whereby near save points you've got various different stormtroopers to attack, and then they mix things up nicely so you can kind of just experiment. If you want to go back and just get them to respawn again, that's fine. And it creates this nice little gameplay loop where you're in a Metroidvania style, you're opening up new pathways, and then there's a verticality to the levels, so then you'll kind of create new shortcuts, drop ropes down, all this kind of thing. And as you get more abilities, more Jedi powers, you'll be able to explore even further. But I very much appreciate the fact that it's not simply straightforward hack and slash, that you don't just kind of immediately become this kind of Jedi killing machine straight off the bat, that it goes in a slightly different direction. And I think that's something I've been wanting from just the Star Wars franchise all round to do for a long time, which is don't just keep on trying to remake what was, the original trilogy. Have some different experiences. Have something darker. Have something lighter. When you look at some of the animated Star Wars series, they were excellent. Why were they excellent? Because they tried something a little bit different. And I think just all round, if this does become a regular franchise, it's kind of quite similar to, if you think back to the original Assassin's Creed or the original Uncharted. They were kind of 7 out of 10 games, a bit rough around the edges, but they offered enough to make you want to keep playing. And I think that's all this really does. It's if you like Star Wars, you're going to want to keep playing. If not, then maybe you'll notice a few more of the rough edges around the overall gameplay. But it's what I've wanted for a long time, a decent single-player Star Wars game, and it looks good.
And can anybody pick this up, or do you need to be a bit of a gamer? Because I tend to get killed after a few minutes.
You know what? I think some people have kind of played up the kind of Souls-like element of it, that it's a bit harder. The fact that, you're not just going to have like a checkpoint whereby you die and then you automatically go back to that. That, you've got these save points, but they are fairly copious, and you can kind of go away and build up with experience points to unlock new abilities if you want. And I don't think it's a hugely difficult game, but also you've got different difficulty levels, so you can drop down to easy if you just want to explore and just have the story. But it's slightly more punishing than I think certain single player Star Wars games. You think stuff like kind of The Force Unleashed have been in the past, where they quite clearly want to appeal to the broadest possible audience. My only criticism, if I've got a criticism, it would be that perhaps certain elements of the story, certainly the lead character, is a bit kind of vanilla and unimaginative. But I think this is something you're going to see going forward anyway. Now that everything has to be canon, it feels sometimes like everything is kind of a story designed by committee, because you can't just have that experimentation anymore. So there is that element, but beyond that, I think just anyone who's in any way, who gets that little kind of hairs on the back of your neck when you hear the music and you get just a great moment of kind of a fighter come into view or something like that, or some kind of a key visual that just or particular story beats that just hit in the right place, then you're going to like it.
Just really, really quickly, have you played this Death Stranding thing?
No, I haven't yet, just because I've heard both excellent things about it and other people saying that it's like a postman simulator.
It does. I read the synopsis. It's on the very few occasions I've read a really carefully written synopsis, and I'm more confused at the end of it than I was at the start. It's like, okay. Well, no, I let's not waste any more time, but I'd be fascinated for your feedback if and when you get onto that one.
That's next up. After I finish this, I definitely do want to pick that up.
Cool.
Right, okay. No doubt we'll come back to future podcasts. Right, moving on. Movies next. Right, moving on. We do have a film review. We're going to do that at the end. But first of all, films opening this week. One that I'm not sure if I want to go and see it because I don't want to be supporting Ryan Johnson.
Well, I mean, I like Brick and the Brothers Bloom and Looper. I just hated The Last Jedi. So, this is not a Star Wars film.
That was tongue in cheek, Steve. Yeah, I was tongue in cheek.
I mean, there's plenty of reasons why you could not want to go and see it, but actually, it's got Chris Evans and Daniel Craig in it, and looks like it might be quite good fun.
Yeah, so that's
basically it's basically a whodunit.
So that's out Wednesday, so I'll be going to go and see that on Wednesday. I like a midweek trip to the cinema, so Knives Out Wednesday. Charlie's Angels, no interest in this whatsoever.
Nobody is.
Nobody was, apparently, because it bombed in the States.
Right, okay. So we'll move on swiftly then, and one that I do want to go and see is Jane Silent Bob Reboot.
Finding a cinema screening it.
That could be the issue with this one.
I just checked the Odeon, it's not listed there. So I suspect this will be in smaller art house cinemas, because the way that Kevin Smith makes his films these days, basically he pre-sells it or does limited releases, and actually releases it himself and distributes it himself, and basically has screenings arranged and goes along to them, this kind of thing. So it's got a limited release in this country. So you might find it difficult to find a cinema that's showing it, although it'll be out on disc and streaming pretty soon afterwards. So,
Yeah, okay. If I can see it, I might go and
see it. But I do want to see it.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's films opening this week. Discs released this week. There's no 4K, but Blu-ray, Steve?
Yeah, Blu-ray. There's the disc of HBO's current series of Catherine the Great, which stars Helen Mirren. There's also a Blu-ray release of Scandal. I don't know, it doesn't stay here whether that's a scandal about Christine Keeler and everything, but that's the only one I know. But it might be. There's also a TV series called Scandal.
Also a TV series, yeah.
So it could be either. I don't know. Check it out for yourself if you're interested. The big release for me, and mine actually arrived today, so I was watching some of it this afternoon, is RoboCop. Arrow have done a new release.
This is the Verhoeven one, isn't it?
Yes, Paul Verhoeven's RoboCop, the unrated director's cut as well, so full of all the violence, or the extra violence, should I say. It's a lovely... It looks gorgeous. They've done I think it's based on a 4K scan from a few years ago, but which we were talking about with a couple of guys, weren't we, Phil, at CES? Do you remember? They were talking about, they said we'd be looking at this 4K restoration with HDR pass that's been done with the director, and he was amazed at how good it looked, and how he said it hadn't looked that good since he was standing on the set. And then
I can't imagine the stop motion animation has aged well.
No, but the guys wouldn't tell us which film it was. But they said, all I can tell you is they said it was an action movie from the 80s, and there's a scene where the protagonist is standing in front of an exploding gas station. And I went, "Oh, that's RoboCop then." And they went, "Oh, okay, yes, it is." So yeah. We worked it out by process of elimination. But this looks great. This is just a Blu-ray, of course, but it's still a fantastic transfer. High bit rate. It looks lovely. There's tons and tons of extras on there, all of which are very interesting. Although there's one missing. So if you've got the previous Blu-ray release from the States back in, I think it was 2013, there's a documentary on that called Flesh and Steel, which is not on this release. So you might want to keep that disc for that. But otherwise, everything you could possibly want, including 3 different commentary tracks. So great disc, great set.
Yeah, good stuff. Streaming-wise?
There's a new series called The Report on Amazon. Oh, this is is this the thing with Adam Driver? Where it's a film, sorry, not a series. I think we're involved in a report about torture or waterboarding or enhanced interrogation techniques in Guantanamo Bay. So I think that's about that. And there's also on Wednesday night, everyone set your diaries because it's The Irishman on Netflix. The new film from
I didn't get that at all.
The Irishman.
Right.
The Irishman, Martin Scorsese's new film with Joe Pesci and Robert De Niro and Harvey Keitel and Al Pacino, and that's had a very limited cinema release, and now it's going to be on Netflix from Wednesday. So I shall be watching that definitely.
Excellent.
Sod Knives Out. I'm going to watch The Irishman.
You can watch The Irishman at any time. But anyway, yeah, I like my midweek trips to the cinema. I enjoy that. Right. So that's everything that's coming out, streaming, disc, and movie. Right, so our spoiler film review, I'm assuming we've all seen this.
No.
You happy to go on?
Bloody Korea, wasn't I?
Oh, yeah,
I don't go. It's a historical thing, so I don't care what you say.
Yeah. After a fashion, it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, Right, okay, so we're talking about Le Mans 66 or Ford versus Ferrari if you're listening from the States. It's one of these films that it could have gone either way. I mean, a great cast. Matt Damon playing Carl Shelby. You've got Christopher Bale playing Batman, playing Ken Miles. It's based on true life events. It's basically the bad guy is Ford in this, not Ferrari. And I'm not sure that was the right approach to take in terms of a film, in terms of dramatic storytelling and so on. I see why they've done it, and obviously what they want to play on is by committee. You know, Ford are a huge company, whereas Ferrari were a little handmade company. You know, a little tiny little company. In terms of it being historically accurate in terms of the racing, in terms of the results and stuff that's well documented. They cover that properly. There's a few things with the boardroom side of things that I think were played for dramatic effect and maybe not that close to the truth. I mean, one person in particular is made out to be a real bad guy, and haven't seen documentaries.
He simply wasn't.
Yeah, I don't think he was as bad as
Coca.
No, Coca was fine.
He actually, ironically, he comes across better than is actually the case, because he was actually at that point the Icoca wasn't a colossal helmet. He became a colossal helmet in the later years. But it's what's his BB? And the really important thing, if we are doing spoilers, the thing is that BB is portrayed as, you know, a sort of corporate hard ass and doesn't care about the nuances of racing and things like that. He knew something which a number of car manufacturers have gone on to forget with spectacular results over the years, that if you don't combine your sporting achievements with the right level of marketing and press coverage and attention to detail, nobody cares. Don't forget that Lancia is the most successful rally company in the history of the universe. And right now, they essentially exist as a novelty item at the bottom of the Fiat price list. The whole business of spending that much money to go and do what they did, it had to be orchestrated. He is the reason the film has been made, because we still talk about it.
Yeah. So that was the only niggle I had in terms of everything else. Now I've watched probably every documentary going on Carl Shelby. You guys have been with me when we've gone to the Heritage Centre. I tend to do that most of the time now when I'm in Vegas. It's a fantastic place, full of history and all the rest of it. And Carl Shelby is an icon. But what I really liked about this is the fact that you get the humanity behind the characters. They're not just on screen to perform a role. You actually get to see the relationships. You get to see the emotions. And that's what makes the film work. And I think it's a fantastically well-made film. It's not for car nuts. It was such a mixed screening that I went to as well. I mean, I went on opening day, and I was sat next to two girls in their 20s who I would never have imagined would have gone to see a racing movie. That's the appeal it had, and I think word of mouth has been absolutely superb as well. Review-wise, it's been getting really well reviewed. What did you think, Ed? You went to the cinema. You made the trip to the cinema, which is unusual for you. So
yeah. Well, no, I thoroughly enjoyed it, provided that you go into it knowing that it's a modified take on what actually happened. You know, Shelby was not the starting point of the GT40 program. Lola was. He took it on after essentially Lola had got to the point where there was the fundamentals of a quick car, but there were any number of problems which are shown to be sorted in quite an accurate way, and so on and so forth. And again, in spoilers, Ken Miles didn't sit out the 65 Le Mans. He went. He was part of the team that you know, I think his car made it, was the last one to fail, but nevertheless he didn't waltz out saying, oh, you know, you need to look after your gearbox and stuff like that. He was there, and it went bang at the time. But it, as you say, it's semantics. That what's brilliant about it is that if we forgive Christian Bale having truly magnificent wandering accent syndrome, there is some actual honest to God acting. I mean, Matt Damon is you know, essentially it's a very good performance, because it's not scenery chewing. I mean, obviously Bale does a bit of that, but that's what Christian Bale does. You get him in to chew scenery. Matt Damon turns in an absolutely great performance.
Yeah, I mean, he looks nothing like Carroll Shelby, but he acts like Carroll Shelby. You believe he is the man, the way he comes across on screen. It is really well made. It's really well put together. Technically, it's brilliant. The soundtrack is amazing. The driving scenes are pretty spectacular, to be honest with you. I was on the edge. I know the story, you know what I mean? But it still had me sitting on the edge of my seat, and I was crying at the end of it. You know what I mean? It's like, because, like I say, they got the emotion right. They got the characterization right. It was about the humanity. It wasn't about the technical issues or the techniques of racing or anything like that. There's none of that in there, really. It's just a really nice human story.
It has to be said, even in this film, there is still moderate abuse of manual gearboxes for dramatic license. But that's an American problem. But nevertheless, I have to say, the one unintended consequence, it does serve to remind you, it was actually not unsuccessful in its own right, but I maintain that the Ferrari 330 is the most beautiful racing car ever made, bar none. It's just the most extraordinary looking thing.
But the line in the film was, if it's a beauty contest, they'd lost already to the Ferrari.
Yeah. It's just a magnificent thing. But no, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I was saying before we kicked off the recording, I went to Cineworld, and I wanted a time showing at a specific time, and that meant I went to the one where they beam sort of a secondary image on either side of the screen, which I thought was very weird, added absolutely nothing to the experience whatsoever, and was further undermined. I am to recognising screen issues what John Candy was to hang gliding, but nevertheless, it wasn't the same colour on either side of the screen as it was on the screen itself.
It's one of these pointless gimmicks that's happening at the minute.
But it didn't mess about with it too chronically. I thought it was really, really good, and it has to be said, it is quite satisfying to come out of the cinema, admittedly not for much longer in my case, but to get into a Ford. That's always quite good fun as well. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. And it did, it was a long film, but as the AVForums review by Sharon pointed out, it ticks along at a decent pace without feeling hurried, but equally not dragging its feet. I thought they did a good balance on that.
When you got into the Ford, did you get the V8 Rumble?
Surprisingly enough, no. But then mine went round corners, so
Yeah. I didn't like the fact that they went to the Mustang launch and slagged it off. I wasn't happy with that. Oh
no, but that essentially, Ken Miles was known by the Americans he worked with as Terry Teabag, which I thought was something that they really ought to have got into the film, and his ability to be incredibly bloody rude.
Yeah.
At incredibly inopportune moments. I believe it's pretty much down the line, and I have to say, Phil, he is right in so much as the 3-speed 6-cylinder Mustang is shit.
Yeah, but the thing is, him and Shelby, they did the GT350, which is still held up as one of the best ever sports cars.
No, absolutely. I thoroughly enjoyed it. If I don't go to the cinema very often. It's easier now. I mean, obviously, I will be going a little bit more often than I have hitherto been, because it's a 10-minute trip, whereas it wasn't recently. But nevertheless, it was good.
Very, very funny. It was really funny.
Yes,
really funny. So, there's a couple of scenes in there where absolutely belly laughing, and like I say, it had a nice emotional ending to it as well. I mean, it wasn't pulling on the heartstrings deliberately, but it was just a nice ending to the film. I thought they did a really good job with it. It wasn't over the top melodramatic in any way, but it was just, like I say, it's a nice human story, and that's what I appreciated. Even though it was a car film and all the rest of it, you could go into it knowing nothing about it and come out of the other side having seen a really, really good film.
And if you're like me and you get interested in film soundtracks, it's not really on any of the streaming services in an unbroken form. And also, the title piece of music that's in there, that as in not the score, but the sort of piece of music they keep returning to, it's breathtakingly cynical, because it sounds like a piece of 60s music. It is not. It is brand new. It's a reimagining of a classic track called Polk Salad Annie. And that is on streaming services. If you do a search for that, you will find the Le Mans 66 version of it lurking on its own as a solo track if you want it.
Yep, good stuff. So that's it for the podcast this week. We've turned into a feature-length episode yet again. It always happens. But there we go. That's it for this week. My thanks to Ed Selley.
Happiness is the enemy.
Steve Withers.
Careful with this thing.
And Mark Botwright.
What?
Don't forget, you can follow us on Twitter and Facebook and bookmark AVForums for the latest reviews, news and videos. Plus, why not leave us a 5-star rating on iTunes, but only if you enjoyed the show. Also, head over and check out our YouTube channel for videos of the latest product launches and reviews. And while you're there, feel free and subscribe. I'm Phil Hinton. Thank you very much for listening, and we'll see you again next week.